The man that I ministered to in the old county prison, we were talking about hope in the Bible study. He didn't respond to that. But later on, when he was in the state prison, he had a choice to make of either ending his life or finding the hope that we talked about. And he went to chapel instead and found hope. That's the kind of light that Jubilee wants to shed in dark places.
I'm Paul Brown. This is my Jubilee story. Growing up in the 50s and 60s, being made to go to church. Like many homes, it was quite dysfunctional, and it was pretty much a war zone. I remember going to school as a youngster, and I had that many welts on me, I looked like a zebra. It made me angry. It made me aggressive. And so I was always fighting. I took it to the schoolyards, to the streets, and even into prison. That's why I wound up with a rap sheet with numerous assault charges. So my county time, starting out with 11 and a half months sentence in June of 1976.
I grew up on a farm in Honeybrook, Pennsylvania. I had 8 siblings, 6 sisters and 2 brothers. It was a pretty happy family, I think. I got myself in a lot of trouble because I was rebellious. I had friends that were in California at the time. I felt like I wanted to see things and experience things. And so I packed up my Austin Healey Sprite with everything I had, and it took up all the space. When I got to California, I had $17 left. That's when a lot of my partying and getting into drugs started. That all led up to a lot of sadness, a lot of depression, mostly staying in my room for weeks. That's where God met me. God came into my life in such a powerful way. I really never felt in my heart that Jesus was real as he became at that time. And so I walked out into the living room, and there must have been a dozen people out there getting high. I said, guys, do you know Jesus is real? It was like so real to me, and I'm so grateful. I got married, and I wanted to start a family, and I wanted to do that in Pennsylvania as well. We went to Gingrich's Mennonite Church when we came back, and that's how I met John Landis and some of the young people who were involved with Jubilee. No idea of coming to Pennsylvania to get involved in a prison ministry until I got here and started talking to people. They were in the process of looking for someone to be a chaplain. I was sitting behind John Landis. He said as he sat there, the Lord told him, that guy right behind you, that guy back there with the long hair and the beard. Transitioning to Jubilee, we started having Bible studies on Wednesdays. And then I would go to the prison, and it was wide open. The warden, God had prepared his heart, and he was so cooperative. There was always plenty to do. First time I met Paul was in Bible study on a Wednesday evening.
First time I met with Ken, we're going back to entered the county prison in 1976. And so it was all about getting out of the block. Whether I wanted to go to church or not, you just want to get out of the block whenever you can. And that's a good thing. God knew what he was doing when he put that thought in my mind to get out of the block and go to church. Well, I met Ken and Claire Weaver as well. Not that I climbed the fence or jumped the wall, but I just decided to take off. So I wound up with 2 escape charges. I tacked on another 2 to 5 years on an 11.5-month sentence. And then that wasn't enough. And there again, because of my aggressive nature, I wound up with another assault charge. I tacked on another 3 to 6 years. So that's how I wound up in the penitentiary. One of the officials, he knew I had several escape charges. They said, if you can get over a 30-foot wall, you deserve to get away. God made quick work of that experience. I rolled in there in August, October 15th, 1978. It's never been the same. That's when I felt what it was like to hit bottom. I had a choice, being on the top tier, dive off the top and end it all, or go one more flight of steps to the chapel. And as you can see by me sitting here, that's what I elected to do. In just that short time period, God moved quick. And guess what? Contrary to what that person said when he put me behind that 30-foot wall, I was never freer than that day. When the sun sets you free, you should be free indeed. When you accept Jesus as your personal Savior, it's radical. He just rids you of all the baggage, of all the hurt, of all the pain, of all the shame. He showed me a love that I never knew, never felt in my life. And I was able to live that in the time period that I spent incarcerated at Huntington. So when somebody says to me, you wasted the best years of your life, 18 to 25, I said, no, I didn't. It was the best thing that ever happened. I needed that. I was a train wreck. The road I was traveling, I would either got killed or I would have killed somebody. So for that, I wouldn't change anything.
And I just studied the book of Esther. Even when we are out of the will of God, His providence guides us. We're not perfect. We don't deserve what God gives us. He gives it to us because of His great love for us. But it's great to see His hand, to have the certainty in my heart, to know that it was His plan for that to happen. I feel like He confirmed it over and over. How God has moved, and all the people who have seen what God has done.
Paul was a former inmate at the Lebanon prison. He's presently here at county prison for sentencing. It was a real joy to see Paul, as he has had a beautiful conversion experience. Without speaking to Paul, the warden came to me and said, Paul's a completely different person. I could tell by the glow on his face. It was a real encouragement to hear Paul's testimony. He and I have also been walking all through the prison and sharing with his old friends.
Is this Paul?
Ken! How the heck you been?
I've been fine, and you?
Great! It's good to see you.
It's great to see you.
I've told my story at different times when it actually, when God really got a hold of me. I mean, you guys planted the seeds with me coming to church at the county prison. Mm-hmm. But it took me going to the penitentiary for God to wake me up.
God's the one in charge.
Yeah, He is.
We're just here as instruments.
That's a fact.
God is faithful.
Yeah, He is.
And He will accomplish His purpose, regardless of who we are and what we do.
If I can make it, God can change me. He can change anyway. That's kind of how I looked at it.
God uses what we go through. God can take anything and make it work for good.
The Lord knew all along what His plan was for me. This is what I've done. This is what I've been through. And it's only because of God that I'm sitting here talking to you about it. I just can't help but be reminded of climbing that extra flight of steps to the chapel. Don't underestimate God and His design. He knew what I was going through in the 50s and 60s. He knew how I was going to turn out in the 70s. He knew it. That's when He reached down and picked me up and showed me real fatherly love.
and that He had a good purpose for your life.
Absolutely. God's been good to me all these years. And I have to honestly say, it wasn't because I was drugged to church back in the 60s. I wholeheartedly believe that it was because of Jubilee. Those seeds were planted. I thought I was just getting out of the block. God knew different. He used those days to His glory. So it was okay that I traveled the road that I did, because the end result was coming to know Jesus as Lord and Savior. It's what made the world a difference in my life. I can't imagine where I'd be without Him in all these years since I've been home.